How do Americans feel about the big, beautiful bill?
Yeah, if we're talking about adjectives, how about they think it's awful, they think it's horrible, and to quote our colleague Charles Barkley, terrible, terrible, terrible. I don't just got one poll for you, Omar. I got 5 of them. Fox minus 21. Oh, that's gotta hurt.
Yes. Really got a lot of voters to say, this guy understands us. He understands affordability. We need more of our money to spend it how we want to. But, Senator, as it stands right now, the Congressional Budget Office says that the Senate's version of the bill would add something like $3.9 trillion to the nation's $37 trillion debt mountain. And the Committee for Responsible Budget says it's the same thing. How should Americans who are trying to balance their own household budgets by not spending more than they make, how do they view that?
Now, I'm just going to let you know, you are not prepared for how spineless this answer is.
Well, let's have confidence in President Trump and the Republican majorities in the House and the Senate to deliver for the American people. The one thing I can tell you, Liz, is that the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, they were dead wrong in 2017. They said that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act would actually increase our debt. It did not. It actually increased our revenues.
When Trump talks about this bill, the main thing he emphasizes is that it will extend the tax cuts Republicans passed in 2017 and add some more, which he claims will be good for everyone. That is more than a little misleading, because while the bill does contain tax cuts for basically everyone, their benefits are massively concentrated among the wealthiest Americans. In fact, 60% of the tax cuts would go to the top 20% of households.
As the big, beautiful bill championed by Donald Trump winds its way through votes in Congress, Trump has been forced to face the harsh reality that his bill is as popular with the American people as it seems to be on his once prized megaphone of Fox News. After polling taken across the past month shows Americans largely disapprove, which California Governor Gavin Newsom was quick to point out today, showing that even in Fox News's polling, it has a 59% disapproval rating.
They don't think of it as one big beautiful bill. They think of it as one big bad bill. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look at the big beautiful bill net favorable ratings. I got 5 different polls for you on the screen, and you don't have to be a mathematical genius to know that these are horrible, horrible, horrible numbers. Washington Post, minus 19 points. Pew Research Center, minus 20 points. Fox News, minus 21 points. Quinnipiac University, minus 26 points. And then KFF takes the cake at minus 29 points on the net favorable rating. Holy Toledo, you just never see numbers this poor. I have been trying to look through the history books to find if there was another piece of legislation that was on the verge of passing that was as unpopular as this one. And Boris Sanchez, I cannot find one.
Medicaid is the next target on behalf of Democrats. There are 80 million Americans who receive some measure of Medicaid reimbursement to a tune of $600 billion. Can you not admit that there's got to be some waste, fraud, and abuse?
There's no question.
There's $600 billion.
There's waste, fraud, and abuse throughout government. There's no question about that, and we have to go after waste, fraud, and abuse. But let's recognize that 2/3 of the people in nursing homes are paid for with Medicaid. 1/10 of the veterans in the United States of America are on Medicaid. There are 70 million Americans on Medicaid. It's not just low-income people who don't have any other resources. It's not just disabled people who really have no other opportunities. It's not just people getting the Affordable Care Act help with health insurance. It's veterans. It's senior citizens.
But you
children.
can see that there is room to trim in that area.
Yeah, but what we're seeing from DOGE, what we've been seeing so far, a lot of it's just been reckless. Why do you want to eliminate people who work to oversee the nuclear stockpile? Why do you want to get rid of people who oversee the avian flu? Why do you want to get rid of people who oversee a measles outbreak in Texas and in New Mexico?
But they brought them back. I see your point.
But there's a lot of these instances, and I've been involved in government before where I've reduced the size of the workforce when I was Nassau County executive by 15 to 20%. You have to have a plan. It can't just be reckless and just cut without a plan as to how you're going to still deliver the important services.
So there's agreement that something should be done. Just a question on how to do it from your perspective.
Now this comes as he sent out his chief propagandist Caroline Leavitt to flaunt the bill that at the time of recording is still not passed, seeing as many Republicans oppose it.
So, Mr. President, over the course of the evening, I may look for an opportunity to speak again. But I'm telling the president that you have been misinformed. You supporting the Senate mark will hurt people who are eligible and qualified for Medicaid. I love the work requirement. I love the other reforms in this bill. They are necessary, and I appreciate the leadership of the House for putting it in there.
And during a humiliating back and forth, she had to be reminded of the contents that are actually within the bill. I guess there's only so much time in the day. Why spend time reading a bill that is, your job when you could be discussing alligator Alcatraz while wearing a cross on your chest?
Go ahead. Thanks, Carolyn. Does the president support this new measure in the big, beautiful bill that would impose steep new taxes on new wind and solar projects?
I believe you're referring to the credits for wind and solar projects.
No, and we're talking about the new tax. There's a new tax that it's estimated would add 10 to 20% to the cost of any new wind and solar projects that start after this year.
Again, I don't want to comment on the specifics of provisions, but I'm sure the president will speak on that directly. Again, this is an ongoing process. The president continues to be very much engaged with the leadership in both the Senate and the House to get this bill back to his desk.
Did the president ask for that provision? Because the National Building Trades Union is saying that it's the equivalent of terminating more than 1,000 Keystone XL pipeline projects. Is that something that would concern him?
Well, the president spoke on this yesterday in his interview, and he said he understands that legislators want to protect jobs in their communities and in their districts. And so he understands why some of them are against this provision, but he also understands why people want the provision. So again, this is an ongoing deliberation and discussion, and the president is engaged in this very much. Go ahead.
Now, it's no secret that Trump has falsely claimed that Americans largely support his big, beautiful bill. He told reporters at a promotional event last week, quote, almost every major promise made in the 2024 campaign already will have become a promise kept. However, it appears that our fearless cult leader is telling more porky pies again as he tries his very best to beat his record set last term of lies told. And the thing is, it's not just on Fox News. A wide-ranging Quinnipiac University poll published last Thursday was taken in late June, which found that 55% of voters said that they opposed the bill.
You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know that when the net favorable rating of your bill is somewhere between minus 19 and minus 29 points, that it is not a positive bill as viewed by the American public. The American public at this particular point hate the big, beautiful bill. As far as they're concerned, it's not a big, beautiful bill. It's a big, bad bill.
And despite the endless spin tactics from Republicans like Tim Scott here, as he does everything possible to just avoid answering a basic question, this bill would impose new work requirements on able-bodied Medicaid recipients who don't have dependents. And if you take those same polls and you look at the support for Medicaid across the board, it is overwhelmingly in favor of the program, with upwards of 79% of Americans saying that they think it is the government's responsibility to, quote, provide health insurance coverage to low-income Americans who cannot afford it. And I mean, outside of the cuts to Medicaid, you look at the staggering tax cuts for the uber wealthy that are in this bill. With an estimated 60% of its promised tax cuts going to the top 20% of earners.
When Trump talks about this bill, the main thing he emphasizes is that it will extend the tax cuts Republicans passed in 2017 and add some more, which he claims will be good for everyone. The White House recently said it'll deliver a blue-collar boom, all caps, which sounds like a new special at IHOP tied to the Smurfs movie that'll make you immediately shit yourself. But that is more than a little misleading, because while the bill does contain tax cuts for basically everyone, their benefits are massively concentrated among the wealthiest Americans. In fact, 60% of the tax cuts would go to the top 20% of households. And you should know, just about every independent analysis agrees this bill would add trillions to the national debt. And to the extent the bill's tax cuts are going to be paid for at all, it'll be through slashing programs that benefit the poor. And I want to talk about two key areas they're targeting: healthcare and food assistance. When it comes to healthcare, there are lots of cuts, both big and small. For instance, the bill fails to extend tax credits for healthcare premiums under the ACA, while adding burdensome paperwork that would make it hard for people to remain on the plans they already have. And I know that might not sound like much to you, but it's estimated those tweaks alone will lead to 4.2 million people becoming uninsured, which makes them pretty consequential tweaks. It'd be like changing RuPaul's Drag Race to Rand Paul's Drag Race. You can call it just a tweak, but it's about to make everything way worse.
So as Republicans bend themselves into a pretzel to try to justify voting for this bill, let alone supporting it. A bill that, yes, explodes the deficit despite what Caroline Leavitt lies about.
Well, can you respond to the CBO estimate that the Senate bill would increase the deficit by nearly $3.3 trillion?
This is one of the most fiscally conservative pieces of legislation that has ever made its way through Capitol Hill. There's $2 trillion in mandatory savings in this bill. And not only that, the projected growth that this bill will bring to our economy. It will be an economic boom. The Council of Economic Advisors has an analysis that shows that the bill will generate $4.1 trillion in economic growth, and it will cut taxes, putting more money back into the American people's pockets. That's why this president wants this bill to pass. And I know he's busy working the phones and doing what he needs to do today to make it happen. So we'll see you all later. Thank you. We'll see you in Florida tomorrow.
And comes for the most vulnerable people in America in order to benefit the top earners. It is so clear that the American people are not buying it.
It's a big, bad bill.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.